안녕하세요. 존입니다. 반갑습니다. 지금 제가 와 있는 데가요, 라저드라는 자산운용사입니다. 제가 여기에 거의 10년 전까지 일하던 회사고요. 깜짝 놀라실 겁니다. 제 옆에 계신 분은 나하고 인연이 90년대부터니까는 30년. 제 보스였고, 굉장히 유명하신 분입니다. 니콜라스 브레이라는 분인데, 파운더 오브 더 코리아 펀드예요. 우리 여러분들 코리아 펀드라는 얘기 많이 들으셨을 건데, 처음으로 코리아 펀드 이 아이디어를 생각하신 분인데, 지금까지도, 그래서 일하시고 은퇴할 생각이 없으시다고 하는데요. 오늘 점심 같이 먹고 들어와서 이렇게 너무나 귀하신 시간을 할애해서, 인터뷰를 하려고 합니다. 그래서 전반적인 거, 미국 시장도 물어볼 수 있고요. 또 글로벌 시장도 물어볼 수 있고, 또 코리아 펀드 얘기도 할 수 있고, 그래서 오늘은 참 귀한 시간을 내주셔서 이렇게 너무 감사하네요. Nick, thank you for your time. And
it's a great pleasure.
yeah, it's after so many years, and I was looking around the office I used to work. It's amazing. And actually, I met Tanya after all the many years. So I think that probably we can begin with the Korea Fund.
Yes.
That people, a young generation, they didn't have a chance to learn about the Korea Fund. How was it created? The importance of the fund to Korean capital market. So why don't you begin? Why did you want to buy Korean equities from the beginning?
From the beginning. Yes, it's a long time since I've been asked that question, but it's so important. So just to take a step back, my job, my career has always been to try to look after investors' interests in equities.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a passion for investing in companies, and the passion is generated by a fascination with constant change and evolution. And if you can understand change and evolution, then you're going to be able to identify opportunities. So that's the first philosophical starting point. And then what happened in the 70s, I had a responsibility, among others, to identify attractive Japanese companies.
Mm-hmm.
And as an investment analyst, it's always very important to understand the competition that companies are facing, because competition will determine longer-term success.
Sure.
And what was so interesting in the 70s, and this was a time that Japan had done so well for so many years in the post-war period, was that when I asked Sony, Matsushita, Hitachi, Sanyo, Sharp, tell me about longer-term competition. Which companies are worrying you? And they said, well, we're not worried by RCA and Zenith, and these are companies that you probably
in the U.S. companies,
yeah. They're U.S. companies, and actually they don't exist anymore.
That's true, yeah.
But even in those days, the answer I got was, we're not worried by Zenith, we're not worried by RCA, but we are concerned and worried from a company called Samsung and a company called Lucky.
Lucky Gold Star.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, Samsung, Lucky, what are those companies? I've never heard of them. And they said, they are Korean companies. And from a long-term point of view, we are worried about competition from them. Now, for me, as an analyst, when somebody introduces a new idea, something I haven't heard about, I immediately get excited. So when I came back from Japan, from this research trip, my boss wanted to know how the trip went, whether I had any insights and so forth. And I said, well, I came across a very interesting insight. And that is, just as I've described to you, when I spoke to Japanese companies about long-term competition, they talked about Korean companies. And he immediately said, well, Nick, the next time you go out to the Far East, you must include a visit to these companies so that we can assess how serious the competition really is. And so that's what happened.
That's very unusual. At those days, investing ideas from Korea. Korea's capital market is so tiny, right? But
absolutely.
Yeah.
And not only was it tiny, but it was closed to foreigners.
That's true, yeah.
You know, as I discovered,
incredible.
Because what happened was I was delighted that my boss thought it was a good idea to go to Korea. That's what I wanted to do. So I went and I arranged to go and visit. It was difficult because nobody understood what I was doing. Why did I want to go and see Samsung? Why did I want to go and see Lucky? And I explained that from a long-term point of view, I wanted to understand these companies. And the senior management were very open, and very friendly to me. And I was probably, I don't know, but I was probably the first financial analyst in history to go and visit these companies. Because I don't think Koreans at that stage,
even Korean investors, they didn't think about visiting companies before they invest.
Yes.
Because they are buying and selling anyway. Who cares about the fundamentals of the companies they buy? But it's so early days.
And you know, for us, we will only buy companies if we can understand them. You know, we have a responsibility to our clients. After all, it's their assets, it's their savings that we are investing. So we have to be very careful that we invest in sound companies that are going to be commercially successful.
Yeah.
So I had these wonderful early meetings with Samsung and Gold Star. And without exaggerating, in my whole career, I was never more excited than after these meetings, because I realized that these were companies that were going to be successful. And because of Korea's development, I knew at those days that the Korean costs and the prices were much lower than the Japanese ones.
That's true.
And much, much lower than the American ones. And when they showed me the factories and I saw the products, it was clear, absolutely crystal clear, that these were going to be successful companies in the long term. So I immediately went the next day to the stock exchange, only to discover that as a foreigner,
So you didn't know.
I didn't know that foreigners couldn't buy Korean companies. And I thought, this is extraordinary. Here is the most attractive investment opportunity I've ever seen in my professional career, and now I'm being told we can't invest
because you're a foreign investor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the background to what happened.
Right, but even if you are excited about the opportunities, still the sentiment that even Japan or Canada, the U.S. investors, they're very hesitant investing outside of the U.S. But how, that's why I think this is very amazing that even if we are excited that there's obstacles to overcome, there's so many, to change the concept and change the people's mind. And how could you do that? The support, getting the support from the top management. And the setting up the fund itself also is very tough.
Yes, well, it's partly, I guess, to do with my character. I love doing.
I know that because
love
I have
doing
to
new
work with you
things.
so many years. That's why I'm trying to introduce my audiences that how big your energy was to
Yes.
to make this happen.
And I come back to the extraordinary value that I identified. I'm going to repeat myself. What I saw was the most attractive investment opportunity I had ever seen in my professional career. I thought, I cannot believe this. So when I told my boss when I came back about how excited I was, we mentioned this to the president of the company, a wonderful man called George Johnston,
Sure.
who died some years ago. And he had very fond, I didn't know it, but he had very good, positive feelings about Korea. He'd fought in the Korean War and had Korean
really?
friends.
That I didn't know that.
And I said to him, look, we are managing at the moment the Japan Fund, which is a closed-end fund, which was the first vehicle to invest in Japan on behalf of foreign investors.
Right.
We have a model here. Let's create a Korea fund and provide the first vehicle to enable foreigners to invest in Korea. I know the stock market is closed at the moment, but Korea will evolve. It will be a successful economy. It is inevitable. At some point, I don't know when, but at some point, they will open up their stock exchange to foreign investors. Why don't we lead the way? Let us be the people, the first people in history to introduce the opportunity of investing in Korean companies to foreigners. And that's what happened. And that conversation would have taken place in about 1979.
Right.
And as you know, 5 years later,
it took 5 years to launch the fund.
To convince the Korean authorities to allow us to come in.
Do you remember that? Actually, the size of the fund.
Yes.
The Korea fund is bigger than the Japan fund.
Yes. Yes.
So you're absolutely right about the finding opportunities in Korea.
Yes.
Wow.
But when we started, the fund was originally $60 million. Sorry, not the fund was $60 million, and the total stock market value, I believe, was it $4
billion.
$4 billion. And you could buy the whole.
I know. I'm trying. I tell the people that they don't believe me. No. We are too much exaggerating. No, it's not. It couldn't be true, but it was.
It was true.
It was.
And that alone tells you, even if you just bought the index without outperforming the index, even if you just bought the index, imagine what the growth from $6 billion to however how many hundreds of $billion dollars.
Right, this is incredible.
It represents.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is what long-term investing.
And also another thing that which is amazed me is that the premium of the Korea fund. Still, I think nobody can break the record.
No, that was
150%.
Yes, that's right. But maybe you should explain in Korean the concept of the premium.
We're going to explain in the, the subtitle. Yeah, so I was very honored for me to manage the fund actually from 91 to 2005, 15 years.
Yeah.
So we had a fantastic performance. I remember that after the Korea fund, the country fund began to exploding actually. The Thailand fund, China fund, whereas Philippine fund.
Yes, and I even remember receiving a telephone call from the Vietnamese government, and they said, we've heard about the Korea fund. Please come and do a Vietnam fund for us. And I said, well, that's wonderful, and I'd be happy to do that. But before we can do that, you need to establish a stock market because, as you know, Vietnam was a divided country and then the communists took over. And the idea of creating a stock market wasn't the first thing that they were thinking about. Now, it happened ultimately, but of course it happened much later.
The Vietnam Fund I launched in Korea.
That's right, I do remember that.
Yeah, and the close-end fund, exactly the repeat the Korea Fund listing in US.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, the Vietnam Fund in Korea now is trading at discount.
Oh, okay.
So it's a great opportunity for the long-term view investors.
Yeah.
Wow, that's history. After 40 years. I think that also our Korean audience is interested in your view, global market, inflation, so on. So what do you think about the outlook of in the global financial market?
The state of the world.
Yes.